Hello, it's 9 p.m. in RTD. It's time to English New Edition for tonight. Headlines, we have the strengthening intra-African parliamentary cooperation is education, a pillar for the development of the country. For the international scene in Libya, an important crossing point for migrants to Europe. Welcome to our newsroom. The 43th Conference of the Union of African Parliamentarians was held this morning under the leadership of the Prime Minister, His Excellency Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, and the President of the National Assembly, His Excellency Mohammed Ali Ahmed. The African Parliamentary Union is a continental intra-parliamentary organization created in Abidjan on February 13, 1976. Its objectives are to promote the unity of actions of the parliamentary institutions of the African states, to consecrate the APU as a forum of the national parliaments of the African continent as an instrument of dialogue and parliamentary cooperation for peace, democracy, good governance, and sustainable development, to work toward the progressive establishment of a true African legal community based on the political, economic, social, and cultural realities of the continent, to promote the contacts between African parliamentarians on the one hand and between African parliamentarians and those of the rest of the world on the other hand. It contributes to the reinforcement of the role and the prestige of the parliamentary institutions in Africa by being inspired by the fundamental human values, as well African as a universal, to the promotion of national parliaments representative of the populations, to the promotion of the inter-parliamentary cooperation and the parliamentary diplomacy, to the effective realizations of the ideals of freedom, equality, peace and justice, as well as to the promotions of human rights, the deepening of the concept of democracy and its effective functioning, of the realizations of the objective of the African Union for the establishment of a lasting peace through dialogue within the framework of inter-African cooperation, and a policy of good governance, good neighbor lines, peaceful coexistence, and African regrouping. The Union for Parliamentary African Parliamentarians constitute a forum for parliamentary cooperation, promotion of peace, democracy, good governance, sustainable development, and social progress in Africa. To this end, it meets in executive committee and conference to discuss this issue. It also meets on the occasions of parliamentary meetings organized in cooperation with international organizations or institutions. The President of the National Assembly and President of the Union for African Parliamentarians, Mohammed Ali Ahmed, said in his speech that the Union for Parliamentary is a forum of parliamentary cooperation, promotion of peace, democracy, good governance, sustainable development, and social progress in Africa. To this end, it meets in executive committee and conference to discuss this issue. It also meets on the occasion of parliamentary meetings organized in cooperation with international organizations or institutions. For his part, the Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed has indicated in his speech it is true that the 76th sessions of the Executive Committee is opening in a particular context marked by the devastating effects of COVID-19 pandemic. Despite this difficult context, you have been able to hold these sessions with an appreciable rate of participation. I would like to take this opportunity to salute your determination to promote parliamentary actions with the commitment and determination. An overview of the topics that will be discussed illustrates this commitment to move our continent forward by fighting with legal instruments all the obstacles and to sustainable economic development in Africa. The impact of the COVID-19 health crisis on African populations will certainly occupy a prominent place in your discussions, and I remain fully convinced that the proposal made will be likely to meet these challenges and revive the African economy in the best conditions. The African Parliamentary Union is pursuing with the great determination its objective by relying on a strengthened and coherent intra-African parliamentary cooperation, but also by establishing privileged relations with sister institutions from all over the world, as evidenced by the various requests for observer studies that it regularly receives. This is thanks to your dedication and is a source of pride for all of us. Under the high patronage of the Prime Minister, His Excellency Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, the Minister of National Education, Vocational Training, organized the closing ceremony of the National Teacher Week. Several members of the government, public figures, and figures of the educational community took part in the event, which took place at the People's Palace. During the week of the teacher, the Ministry of Labor, Formalization and Social Protection, the Minister of Budget, the Minister of City, Urbanism and Housing, the Minister of Communication in charge of postal communication were largely involved in reflections on the upgrading of the teaching functions as an enshrined in NCB. Also, the ceremony was placed under the theme Revalorization of the Teaching Function from Reflection to Action, improving the living and working conditions of teachers through the national teacher policy. It's the interest of the reflections carried out during the past week, where MENFOP mobilized several ministries on the one hand to take stocks of activities, and especially to share with the school actors the progress in the development of the NCB document and the implementation of new guidelines resulting from a consultation and the forum of the NCB. The ceremony was also marked by report and testimonies, as well as interventions by MENFOP, the Minister of Transport, the Minister of Communication, and the Minister of Urbanism Executive, who emphasized the social gains and benefits of various kinds granted to teachers. These are mainly salaries increases and other advances in enrollment. The Minister of the City and Urbanism, Amina Abdi, said that the first officials, the opportunities for her to pay tribute to teacher and recall the benefit granted and efforts made by his ministries to strengthen access to school, to broadband the internet connections for her. The Minister of Communication, Radwan Abdullahi Bahdoun, said has highlighted the benefits related to access to housing for teachers. He indicated that quotas were reserved for teachers in each social housing project implemented by the government. The Minister of Budget, Abdul Karim Adan Sher, praised the teaching professions. He said that the theme of the year for the Teachers' Day coincides with the launch of the first actions of the National Teaching Policy initiated in November 2020, and which aims to diagnose in depth the crucial problems affecting the teaching functions and find adequate, qualitative, and sustainable solutions for dignified exercises of the teaching profession. For his part, the Minister of Labor, Formalization and Social Protection, Isman Ibrahim Roble, also paid tribute to the teaching professions which he has practiced through his professional careers. He recalled the various stages in the cascading upgrading of the teaching professions and pledged to continue this effort to restore dignity to this most noble profession. The Minister of National Education, Vocational Training, Mustafa Muhammad Mahmoud, made a long review of the process of developing the national policy of the teacher. The opportunities for him to announce that with the support of his colleagues and the Prime Minister, we move to action since the implementation of the national policy of the teacher begins this school year. He announced that a memorandum of understanding with partners, ministries, and two conventions will be initiated in the presence of the Prime Minister to formalize the commitment of all parties. Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed concluded the official intervention as he paid special tribute to the teaching professions and reiterated the government's continued commitment to support this noble profession. The Prime Minister finally declared that the national teaching policy is a powerful lever in the upgrading of the teaching function. As part of the closing of the Teachers' Week, the Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed sponsored the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, the Minister of Labor, the Minister of Housing, and the Minister of Communication, finally the Minister of Budget. The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mustafa Muhammad Mahmoud, has also signed two bipartite agreements, one with the Minister of Housing and the others with the Minister of Communication. This memorandum and this partnership agreement should serve as a framework for partnership and synergy for the realizations of the recommendation of the national policy of the teacher, sponsored by the President of the Republic, Ismail Omar Guelleh, during the forum of November 2020. It should be noted that the agreement with the Minister of City, Urbanism and Housing stipulates that 13% of the landed property be reserved for teachers in all states real estate projects. The agreement within the Ministry of Communication in charge of telecommunication and post-telecommunication is intended to strengthen the connectivity of schools and the predefined planning of installations of a smart classroom. Then the Prime Minister, His Excellency Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, has elevated to the rank of commanders, officers, and knights of the Stars of Education 10 teachers from different levels of education who have brilliant careers and who justify self-sacrifices, professional rigors, and exceptional skills. The first two teachers were elevated to the rank of commanders in order of the Stars of Education to reward and recognize their immense merit in the services of the Djiboutian schools. Then the 6 other teachers were elevated to the rank of officers in the order of the Stars of Education in recognition of their dedicated work on selflessness. The last 2 teachers were elevated to the rank of the Knights in order of the Stars of Education to congratulate them for their outstanding performance in the service of national education. The Secretary General of the Primacy, Naguib Abdallah Kamil, chaired this morning's annual meeting of the Secretary General at the People's Palace. This meeting is part of the platform activity that plays a crucial role in the implementation of government decisions. The sessions focused on the effective deconcentration of public services on the one hand and the dematerialization of administrative procedure on the other hand. For his part, the Secretary General of the Prime Minister's Office, Mr. Naguib Abdallah Kamil, said in his speech that the main objective of this meeting is to inquire about the evolutions of the implementation of the instructions and to identify the multiple challenges that can hinder its good executions and also the opportunities to exchange, to have a common understanding of the strengths and the perspectives. The Minister of Social Affairs Solidarity, Ulufa Ismail Abdo, received in courtesy visit the Ambassador of the European Union in Djibouti and to IGAD, Aidan O'Hara, this Wednesday afternoons. Around the discussions were the existing cooperation relations in the field of economic and social development, especially around social programs. Indeed, the EU is a partner of the Social Department through programs such as Sustainable Solutions for Populations, recognizing the significant weight of mixed migrations on Djibouti. The project will support the host countries in the most affected sectors through sustainable actions. At the invitation of the Russian leaders and government, the Minister of Energy in charge of natural resources, Yunus Ali Ghedi, participated the Wednesday, October 13, 2021, in Moscow, the fourth international forum of the Russian Energy Week, at the head of an important delegation of his department, composed notably of his chief technical advisor, Mr. Omar Ahmed, and Wahib Ali Dabbar Addawi Ladiya, respectively Director of Hydrocarbons of the Ministry and International Company of Hydrocarbon, Omar Ahmed, and Mr. Wahib Ali, the Director of Hydrocarbon, the National, finally, Mr. Abdul Razzaq Omar Mumin, and Amin Dawood Hussein, two engineers responsible for drilling programs of the offices of Djibouti for the development of geothermal energy. This forum, whose team chosen for the editions of this year's 2021 is Transforming for Development, holds a place of choice in the agenda of international meeting, as it's true that it has indeed acquired the status of main event in the field of energy efficiency in Russia and abroad. As part of the coastal and maritime patrol, the Djiboutian Coast Guard, to fight against the proliferation of the drug trafficking, the Djibouti Coast Guard intercepted during the day of October 12, 2021, individuals who wholesaler and seller of drug involved in this traffic. Thus, 4 individuals were arrested during these patrols, as well as the following product: 2 bags of hashish, 3 cell phones, a laptop, and laptop computer, various white weapons. The investigation was entrusted to the Brigade of Researches, Investigation and Judicial Affairs of the Coast Guard to bring these individuals to justice. This operation is part of the larger framework of measures put in place by the Djiboutian Coast Guard to ensure the security and safety of the Coast Guard and sea. We regret to announce the death occurred before yesterday at the General Hospital Peltier of the deceased Mahmoud Saban Haji Halas, known as Ali Bir. The deceased was born on October 2, 1964 in Djibouti. He began his career in 1981 at Steed Djibouti Telecom until today. He was the father of our colleague of the program services and leaves behind him a widow and 8 children, as well as 11 grandchildren. In these painful circumstances, we address our sincere condolence to the family of relatives of the Mahmoud Saban Haji Halas. May God welcome him in his eternal paradise. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. For the international scene in Libya, new testimonies of survivors in the Mediterranean Sea reveals once again the mistreatment of migrants by Libyan prison guards, crimes against humanity. These testimonies support the conclusions of the UN report published at the beginning of October, which refers to crimes against humanity. These offices of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, UN agency dedicated to human rights, denounced on Monday, October 11, a series of horrific events in Libya, which resulted in at least half of dozen deaths among migrants or asylum seekers killed by security forces. The spokeswoman of the High Commission in Geneva, Marta Hurtado, mentioned several incidents between October 1 and 8, which resulted in at least half of dozens deaths, according to a still provisional assessment. This is it for the news. Thanks for watching us. Have a good evening.